Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt down in the catacombs. Rob, I got some bad news.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had a show that I thought was quite interesting. It was about a historical event. I think that the people would have enjoyed it, but the course of news has forced itself upon us, and I have to address another issue.
Okay.
Not quite sure how to address it. There's been another sort of video war between the Remnant and a former friend of ours, an ally, a good guy, I guess.
Not this again.
I'm sorry. I hate to bring it up. But this entity, which shall remain nameless, because I'm just assuming that people are as bored by this back and forth stuff as we are.
We got to put this to rest.
We have to put it to rest. I'm going to try to put it to rest tonight. I'm referring to a former ally, as I say, a former ally of ours who has come out with some interesting observations about what's happening in Rome right now with respect to the Synod and, more importantly, with respect to criticism of the Holy Father. Now, implicit in the latest release, the latest video that has been put up on this site, which again shall remain nameless, is that those folks, those of us who have been critical of Pope Francis, really are in need of confession. We need to go to confession. We need to straighten out our lives because we are leading people to perdition by criticizing the Pope. So I take some umbrage with this, Rob,
Right.
just a little bit. However, I really don't care to get down in the trenches and start slinging mud.
You don't want to be militant about it?
I don't want to be very militant. Way to slip that in. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't want to be militant about this, but I do want to defend our position. One thing I want to make really, really clear. The fact that tonight we are sort of scrapping our script and addressing this issue off the cuff, obviously, has to do with the fact that many people think that when we respond, we're responding to a specific video that just came out today, which is in fact happened. But it's very important to realize that this organization that we're referring to loosely is not just every now and then addressing this subject of what's wrong with the remnant, what's wrong with traditionalists in a given video. And the reason I know this is because there are many times throughout the week when I receive email from people who go to this organization and ask this organization specifically about the Remnant newspaper. And there seems to be sort of a canned response that is sent by email back to these people, which really denigrates the Remnant, which really says that the Remnant is a problem, that we are leading people out of the church, that we are scandalous. And this is an ongoing thing. So I want to be clear about this, Rob. We are not responding to the daily, it seems, the daily attacks against the Remnant that are coming from this organization. They really seem to have a problem with us. They are fixated with the Remnant. They are fixated with the Society of St. Pius X. That's their business. I don't really care. But I want to just, for the sake of the record, point out that right down here, and you'll remember this, we did a program, do you remember the name of it some months ago?
The Three Amigos?
Exactly, I think it was called Pope Francis and the Three Amigos. You look it up, watch that video, we could use the hits anyway. And basically what I was saying in there is that those who seem to relish or enjoy attacking the Pope really have some screws loose. There's something wrong there. Any Catholic who enjoys being contra Peter is definitely has got to do some reevaluating. Yeah, they're morphing into Protestantism, and we have so opposed that. Now you'll remember, we were at the conclave. We were in Rome. We spent 2 or 3 weeks there. It was a long, laborious process. Tried before Bergoglio was elected, and after the election, I got to say, in my heart, when he was up in the loggia and he came out, Bergoglio came out, wasn't very familiar with him, but found out that this was a Jesuit, South American Jesuit with a reputation for being quite on the liberal side. My instincts at that point were to feel rather sick. The whole thing felt wrong. It was a dark and scary moment in the piazza that night. And nevertheless, those people who were following the aftermath, the fallout, will recall that there was for a while, a certain strain between the Remnant and our good friends and allies over at Orate Coeli, for example, because Orate Coeli, to their credit, they had great contacts on the ground in Argentina, and they really did have the scoop about Bergoglio. Okay, so Orate Coeli decided right away to come out and say, uh-oh, there's a problem. We've got a big problem with this election. We at the Remnant said, well, I want to see what happens. We want to see what happens with the grace of office. We want to see if perhaps this is, Bergoglio is going to turn out to be not as bad as people thought. So there was some tension for some months between us and a very important ally of ours, Orate Coeli, over this. And that's fine. The viewers can decide who was right. Was the remnant right to wait and see and give him every benefit of the doubt? Or was Arate Chele, who do great work, were they right to right away say this isn't good? That's for the viewers to decide. That's a strategic difference that is open for debate. I readily admit that. But my point is, for a long time, for a lot of months, at the remnant here down in the catacombs, we tried very hard to give Bergoglio every benefit of the doubt. And events have transpired now that it's just becoming very difficult. Our first order of business is to defend the faith, is to defend the church. And I'm sorry, but Pope Francis, right now, and I am just a layman, if you are looking for spiritual direction, please turn off your computer. I'm not your guy. I'm not here to tell you when, you know this, Rob, because you know me very well. I'm not here to tell you where to go to Mass. I'm not here to tell you when you go to confession, when you don't, when you should go to communion, when you shouldn't. That's not my job. I'm a journalist. I'm a guy who's trying and struggling to try to make sense of what's happening in the church right now and do my very best to be honest and have integrity with respect to commentating on what's happening. So I'm not your spiritual director, but I've got to tell you that in my opinion, Pope Francis is very problematic. And I'm not the only one. We have people like Patrick Buchanan, who just came out yesterday with a great editorial in which he said, Bergoglio can't go much further. Pope Francis cannot go much further without running the risk of people saying, what's he trying to do? Change doctrine? Change dogma? He's running into the Sedevacantis anti-popes type category. Pat didn't say that's what he is, but he said if he keeps going that direction, we got a problem. So lots of people have come to this conclusion that Bergoglio, Pope Francis, is problematic to say the least. Having said that, to enjoy criticizing him, I mean, to the extent that we've criticized Pope Francis, it's a very personal and a very difficult decision. We're not enjoying it. And quite honestly, I rather resent the schoolmarm lectures about how the remnant is leading people astray by pointing out the obvious. For one thing, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, Rob, but it just seems to me that if Pope Francis is, in fact, believing that the time has come for the Catholic Church to legalize, to lighten up, to legalize some of these things, to sort of change its perspective on divorce and remarriage, on adultery, on gay unions, on homosexuals, we need to come up with a better approach because the old approach doesn't work. That's what he's saying. That's what Who Am I to Judge was all about. That is what he has been saying ever since he got in, that something needs to change. The church needs to change the way her outlook on this. If that's what he's saying, and if I'm a loyal son of the church, I've got to let him say that, Rob. I've got to give him a hearing. Right. It doesn't do any good for me to say, he's not saying that. Folks, he's not saying that. I know he's not saying that. That's just the media. That's just the liberal cardinals in the Vatican that are playing with us. That's not a loyal thing for me to do. Maybe Pope Francis is right. Maybe it is time to change all of these old strict rules of the church. Of course, I don't believe that. But if I'm going to be consistent, I have to say we have to let the man speak. That's what he's saying. And it doesn't do anybody any good to say he's not saying what he's saying, because he is saying what he's saying. That's where we are at the moment. And a lot of people are saying they're admitting this. And so we're to the point now where we have a very stark and difficult reality to confront. What do? We have a pope who's very liberal. We have a pope who's saying things that are confusing and scandalizing many people, not just traditional Catholics. Now, I come personally from a long line of Catholic journalists. For 150 years, my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and the Wanderer and Der Wanderer, going way back to the reign of Leo XIII, were responding to the call from the papacy to defend the church using the Catholic Press Apostolate. That's what we did. And so when things began to change in the 1960s, for my family specifically, it was very personal, because they were standing against the world as the popes had given them the mandate to do, defending the church, defending the papacy against the errors of the world. Suddenly they began hearing things in the Vatican, after the Second Vatican Council, that confused them. They were, wait a minute, wait. They were hearing things that used to come from the world. Now it was coming from the Vatican, coming from the other direction. It broke their hearts. It was difficult. And we're in the same situation now as members of the Catholic Press Apostolate for 150 years. To be in any sense contra Peter is incredibly difficult. It is not fun. No one's enjoying this. But we have to be realistic. We have to be fair and honest with our readers and our subscribers and our viewers. Things are happening in Rome right now which are exceedingly problematic. And we do not serve you, reader, viewer, by saying that they are not happening, that it's just a few cardinals, it's just the media, it's bad translations. We don't do a service. We abandon our call, we abandon our state in life, if in order to stick with our little narrative, we begin making things up. So what's happening with some of the critics of the remnant right now is they become almost like Sedevacantists. Sedevacantists say, there is no pope, so we don't have to pay any attention to what he's saying. These guys are saying, we're not going to listen to this guy. We want to tell you about the pope we think is there, we imagine. They're creating a pope that doesn't exist. They're not letting Francis speak. They're editing the pope. And this can't be the way to go. This cannot be the right way for Catholic journalists. So again, I don't even have, we don't have a prepared show for tonight's episode other than to point some of these things out that we hope and pray are obvious. We are now in uncharted waters. Rob, do you agree? This is,
oh yeah.
We're flying by the seat of our pants, trying to figure out, trying to make sense of this, trying to do the best we possibly can do. And so the very idea that we are enjoying being critical of Francis is highly, highly insulting, and it's an affront to us and to our integrity. And we tried for a long time to be defensive of Pope Francis. We still are. Anything that happens or does that's going to change or mitigate, we're all for it, and we will bring it to you. But in the meantime, we sort of believe that our readers and our viewers expect us to have integrity and expect us to call a spade and to point out what's happening accurately and honestly without bomb throwing or without trying to exacerbate the situation. I hope and pray that this is abundantly obvious to those of you who have been following us for a long time. In the meantime, we're not going to get into a tit for tat with this other organization that seems fixated with us right now. We wish them the best. We have no problem with our friends and allies who are not comfortable criticizing the Holy Father. Lord knows there's lots of other things to do right now. All we ask is that they stop attacking us for trying as best we can to be loyal sons of the Church by pointing out the obvious with what's happening in Rome and to our beloved Church. Bottom line, pray for Pope Francis, be open-minded, and be fair with accurately and honestly admitting that something has gone terribly wrong with the Church that we love, and that it's time for all of us to stand up and make our voices be heard. I hope that was somewhat coherent and somewhat...
And if we could be done with this now?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
If we could be done with this now, I agree. There are real baddies out there, Rob, and I'm much more interested in going after that. And the organization I'm talking about, the man I'm talking about, that I am not mentioning, is not a baddie. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I like him. I hope this goes away. And but I do feel the need to defend ourselves, at least minimally here. And that's it. Next week, we're done with this. We're moving on to bigger, more important things. So that's it for Remnant TV and Remnant Underground. I am Michael Matt, and we'll see you next time.